Welcome to the Brew Crew Review Podcast, the show by fans for fans of your Milwaukee Brewers. Hello, Brewer fans. Welcome back to another edition of the Brew Crew Review Podcast. This is podcast number 102. I'm your host tonight, Vince Travato, joined here on the set by the great man himself, Mr. Scott Bartell. Scott, how are you tonight?
Doing pretty good, hanging in there. Do we have anyone else joining us today, or?
I was about to ask you, did you talk to our friends and co-hosts, Mr. Chad Collins and Craig Mueller?
I did talk to Chad. I actually reminded him that school actually started here in Nevada a week ago, and he was a little distraught about that, but said, "Don't worry, we got a little bit of time here in Wisconsin, so he's going to make the most of it."
Okay, I don't know what that exactly means. I'm a little actually worried that he does show up the correct week. He is a teacher and he is teaching America's youth, I'm sure, and nothing but good things. But what about Craig? Have you talked to Craig at all?
I think Craig said he had to work, but
Okay.
I tried to let him know that this is sort of a second job for us. So
Yeah, no, it should be a bigger priority.
He reminded
well,
me this is the fourth job for him.
Moving, that's right. Moving right along, perhaps he's been a little disappointed with the Brewers' play of late. And let's recap the week a little bit, Scott. The Brewers were 1-1 in a 2-game series against the Minnesota Twins, a series that took place at Miller Park. Had 2 off days as well last week, and then lost 2 of 3 games to the Washington Nationals. So 2 and 3 on the week. Not the best of weeks, but could have been worse. We could have lost, an extra innings game and been swept by the Nationals on Saturday. So at least we did pull a victory in that series, or in that game of the series. But let's go back to the Twin series first. Can you give us your thoughts on the short 2-game set against the Twins at Miller Park?
No, I was going to say, we were very close to getting swept. I guess I'm doing air quotes in a 2-game series there too.
Yeah.
I know Hader gave up a pretty bad home run late in the first game. And then in the second game, we had some heroics of our own to come back. So I guess it's a wash. Yeah,
and let's actually hit on that point a little bit. I'd like to talk about Josh Hader. I mean, you can have the interns bring up the stats here, but Josh Hader, it seems like he's the first 3-TO type of pitcher instead of just a batter. And there's only a couple different outcomes that you're going to get from him, it seems like. I mean, his overall numbers are still solid. He's got a 3.02 ERA on the year. He's pitched in 45 games. He's completed, 31 games, 56 and 2/3 of innings pitched, and 25 saves. Great numbers, really. But the home run totals are just crazy. He's in the 45 games that he has appeared in, he's given up 13 home runs, and yet he's recorded 106 strikeouts as well. So it's not like guys are able to catch up to him. More than the average pitcher, but at the same time, when they do catch up to him, the balls are leaving the yard. What do you attribute this to? And I should also point out before we get your response here, 13 home runs on the year so far given up by Hader, in, as I said, 45 appearances. And last year he gave up 9 home runs in 55 appearances. So, he's already well exceeded last year's total with 10 less games appeared in. What do you attribute that to?
Yeah, he's only he only gave up 13 home runs in his first 2 years, which was I think about 125 innings or so. So yeah, he's already in 56 innings. He's already done that now. So yeah, and as you were saying, 32 hits this year, 13 have left the yard. That's incredible. That's a
crazy stat.
Almost as crazy as Christian Yelich's fly ball to home run ratio, the second half of last year, and probably all of this year for that matter. So yeah, pretty ridiculous. I don't. It seems to me that from the beginning of this year, They were not having Josh Hader rely on any of his secondary pitches. Like, he was not throwing a slider. He was throwing, like, 95% of his pitches were fastballs, and it was, here it is, hit it. I have a deceptive delivery. I throw 95 plus, and you're not going to hit it. And it's catching up to him a little bit. I mean, people are literally like, once they get the timing down, if the pitch gets too much of the plate, which unfortunately it has a fair amount of times now, people are just teeing off on it. Like, there's no secondary pitch. Like, I mean, you can look at any Brewers reliever in the last, 20 years or any reliever for that matter. Like, if they rely on one pitch, unless your name is like Mariano Rivera, you're probably not going to be super successful.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And, do you think that partially this is the result of his evolving role in the Brewers bullpen? Last year he was a guy who could throw multiple innings, and he still is to an extent this year, but he's also a guy that's being relied on more and more to be a closer because of the struggles of Jeremy Jeffers and because of the injury to Corey Knebel and Bobby Wall and others. Do you think that he's maybe a little uncomfortable in that ninth inning closer's role?
I really don't think that's the issue. I mean, he did obviously finish a fair amount of games, last year. So I don't see it as that. I think it's something else. I think that because he realizes that he's sort of like, he very well might be the last person out of the pen, that if he comes in the eighth inning, we know that we're going to expect a couple innings out of him. Maybe it's just a matter of he's trying to be like as efficient as possible because he doesn't want those you can't have like a 30 pitch inning in the eighth and then come out in the ninth and bring your best. Like, it's not going to happen. So maybe he's trying to limit those by being as efficient as possible, by throwing strikes, but hitters hit strikes sometimes, and maybe that's what it's all about. It's hard to say.
Yeah, no, and yet, he gives up a home run in a very crucial situation against Minnesota, and got hit a little bit in the game on Saturday against the Nationals. But then again, he had no outs, bases were loaded by the Nationals. He was able to pitch out of it as well. And it's funny because those strikeout numbers are what they are. So when you see those numbers, you don't think this is a guy that's struggling. It's just, again, when guys hit him, it's out of the park. It seems like this year.
Yeah, definitely. I remember someone had posed a question on a different podcast that was saying, like, if you had a closer who would get 3 outs every time, but he would give up exactly 1 run every time, so he would have an ERA of 9, what would that be worth to a team? And
well, yeah, that's an interesting question. I didn't know that there were other Brewers podcasts, but
no, this wasn't a Brewers one. This is a national podcast.
Oh, okay, good. No, but that's an interesting question. I mean, what's the response to that?
I mean, at first, I thought, oh, okay, closer ERA at 9, not much. But, the rule is every single time he gets 3 outs and allows exactly 1 run. So every time you put him in.
So his ERA is 9 then?
His ERA is 9. But, if you put him in and it's like a 5-3 game in the 9th inning, you win. He will allow 1 run. It will be 5-4. It's a weird hypothetical. I'm like, actually.
Well, yeah, but it's an interesting question, but you're severely limiting your bullpen options then because, you've got then other guys that are going to have to pitch in all those 1-run games that you're in or tie games that you're in. You could never use them in a game at Miller Park as, a 1-run save situation. I mean, it's a very interesting hypothetical. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, kind of weird. I think it would be worth more than, certainly a lot more than most 9 ERA pitchers. Let's just leave it at that. I don't want to get on a whole time.
Yeah.
We have a lot more to talk about.
We do. What else would you like to talk about, Scott? I mean, we could get into the National Series perhaps a little bit. That was an interesting series. Lost the opener on Friday evening. Lost badly on Sunday, where the Brewers were able to somehow help the Nationals to set their home runs in a game mark with 8. And unfortunately, they tied the 2017 Milwaukee Brewers. But then Saturday, they win this 14-inning marathon of a game. Easily could have been lost many times. Yet the Brewers were able to manage a win on the road in extra innings like that. What do you take away from the Washington series generally, and kind of what were your thoughts overall on the game on Saturday specifically?
One quick note, I'll make this as quick as possible. really,
No,
really
go ahead, Scott. It's
home
fine.
run to put a cap on that twin series by Trent Grisham. That was probably the
Oh,
highlight
yeah.
of my career so far. Yeah, but Friday was – who was pitching? Was that Hauser that pitched really well and we just kind of wasted his effort and lost 2-1?
Yep.
I think, yeah. So that was definitely a heartbreaker. Saturday's 15-14 game probably took years off of every Brewer fan's life.
Yeah.
I was having heart palpitations, and I wasn't even there. You were there. I couldn't even imagine.
I was there, and I think I actually put not that this is funny, but I did put a heart attack joke up, or had our interns put that up on Twitter. Yeah, it was definitely a stressful but yet incredibly fun game. So it's kind of funny and bizarre, but looking at some of the Brewers blogs that are out there and, talking to you guys, the two most dramatic wins that the Brewers have managed this year have been games that I've attended. And I live, in Washington, pretty far away from Milwaukee, right? And have attended, I think, 7 Brewer games overall on the season, including the 3 from this past weekend. So the other one being in Pittsburgh back in early June, and now this came on Saturday. So both extra inning wins on the road and games that went back and forth many times and kind of dramatic ninth inning heroics just to tie the game and all sorts of stuff. But yeah, it was an incredible game on Saturday. I personally had a ton of fun. It was great to see the team be able to come back like that on the road was awesome. There were a lot of Brewer fans in Nationals Park for all 3 games, so that was pretty exciting just to see. The Brewers were very well represented. I mean, it was truly, I think, well, it wasn't even, but I would say that there was at least 30%, maybe even higher, of the stadium were Brewer fans, and that was, I think, a pretty conservative estimate. So that was great to see.
Yeah, no, it's always good to be well represented like that. And I believe we had 7 home runs in that game. I don't even know where that ranks, like as far as our club record. But
well, aren't you supposed to research these things? I mean, also, are you still coming out here for the series that just happened, Scott? I extended you an invitation weeks ago.
The series that already happened. Yeah. No, I wasn't sure. Like, I'm still trying to figure out that. I was like, oh, yeah, DC, or maybe go to San Antonio and see what's going on there.
I mean, all these things are out there, Scott. I mean, you and Craig both had extended invitations, so I don't know what to tell you. But in any event, yeah, it was a lot of fun. Had a chance to really, spend a lot of time at the ballpark and kind of just take it all in. And when your team only comes out to a city that you live in for 3 games out of the year, you're really going to make a whole weekend out of it. So I really spent the whole weekend doing Brewers related stuff, and even had a chance to talk to Jeff Levering and other guys affiliated with the team. It was pretty awesome. By the way, he mentioned us on the air on. He said Saturday night. I talked to him before the game on Saturday, and then again after the game on Sunday, as he was actually getting on the team bus. And he mentioned to us that he talked about us on the air, which was pretty awesome of him. So thanks to Jeff Levering, just in case he listens to the podcast that he brought us up.
I hope he said something like, hey, these guys aren't great, but they're trying their best, and they're definitely hard workers. And, oh, yeah, sorry, I'll talk to some people about trying to get your press passes back.
No, he said something along the lines of, hey, you guys are the ones – I really enjoy your anonymous source, Tom Carter. I think that's what he said. So he mentioned our anonymous source, Tom Carter, and just said, hey, it's cool that you guys have an anonymous source, and, that's awesome.
That is really awesome, but I can't believe you would just out our anonymous source like that. I mean, that's –
Well, that's what I told him. I'm like, hey, Jeff, here's the thing. You can't say Tom Carter's name on the air or out loud in public because he's anonymous. That's the whole point. You got to call him Tom C. or T. Carter because we're trying to keep this thing, pretty covert, and we don't want to blow Tom's cover because he works for the Brewers. So.
Yeah, that's literally probably like journalism 101. Like, that's the sacred code. Like, you can never do that. And I don't think we would ever do that intentionally. So
No. So I told him, here, Jeff, we'd love to have you as a guest in our podcast, but just don't say Tom Carter's name on the air, bottom line. So anyway, he mentioned that specifically, but no, in all seriousness, thanks to Jeff. He was very pleasant and fan of our show, apparently. So again, thanks to Jeff Levering.
I keep forgetting that, like, we always, like, throw out these little references to, like, working back at the Brewers. back when we worked with the organization. Then we use these little inside jokes once in a while. But now, like, a lot of people know these people. A lot of people, like, listen to this podcast now. So, like, it's not really an inside joke anymore. So I guess we have to be a little bit more careful with that. We'll try to keep Tom's name.
No, we realize. Yeah, just don't. Yeah, we realized that when we showed up for that buffet at the Old Country Buffet that time, and all those people were, cheering for us, or when you set that wing eating record at the Chick-fil-A in Atlanta and people knew you, or at Benno's when you closed out the bar that one night after you did the around the world beer tour. So we've definitely attained celebrity status. We definitely have attained celebrity status. So that's exciting. But Scott, also I wanted to point out I did not see our friend and colleague Tom Hodgecourt at all on the trip. I don't know what happened to him, but he did not make the trip apparently. So Jeff, I told Jeff we appreciate your quality journalism, unlike our colleague Tom Hodgecourt.
Oh, okay, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I was gonna say, I'm like, oh man, there goes the 8th best option for people who fucking burn.
Sure. There's the guy who's the 8th best beat writer for the Journal Sentinel for the Brewers. But anyway, yeah. So an intense series. But were you overall disappointed in the results on the week? I mean, I was really, maybe selfishly thinking we could take 2 or 3 from the Nationals. Their bullpen has been weakened. They've been playing a lot better, obviously, the last, 3-4 weeks of the season. But, still, we're talking about a bullpen that just gives up a ton of runs. And I'm not convinced that the Nationals are as good as our co-host Craig thinks that they are. I just, I go to a lot of Nats games, and I don't see the bullpen being able to keep them in any sort of playoff contention. But I thought, maybe I've got my Brewers blinders on with those guys. I don't see their bullpen as being a real threat to any team. And they kind of even proved that on Sunday, even though the Nationals blew us out. But the Brewers were able to put together a 9th inning rally, and I think Moustakas and Arcia both hit home runs in the 9th on Sunday. So were you disappointed that we only won one of the 3 games?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Aside from Sunday's game, the last 4 games before that were all really close games, and so it definitely couldn't happen. But yeah, like you were saying, Saturday's game, Sean Doolittle, 3 home runs. He retired 1 batter.
Yeah, right.
Ouch. And Doolittle's he was one of my favorite closers going into this year. He hasn't been super great yet this year, but he hasn't been bad. But
no, and Doolittle is the best arm that they've got in the pen. They've had to sign guys like Fernando Rodney, Michael Blazek, former Brewer, pitched in the bullpen for a while for them this year. He did get put on the disabled list after the game, so maybe he was dealing with a little bit of an injury. But even so, 4.33 ERA for Doolittle coming out of the Nats bullpen this year, 54 games. He's not the same Sean Doolittle from last year where he posted a 1.60 ERA. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, definitely true. I don't know. I don't know why, but first, of course, I'm obviously disappointed. I think I said we were going to go 2-3, and this is one of the first times that I actually thought that we would have an under 500 week, and unfortunately, it happened. I hate to say it, but right now, when I just look at how teams are playing, the Cubs, the Cardinals, the Mets, and the Nationals, I think all of these teams might finish with a better record than the Brewers at this point. And that obviously would be a very, very bad thing, because that means, that we're not going to get anywhere near the playoffs. And I just don't see it right now. And I'm really trying to believe. I want to be a believer again.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I'll take the optimistic tack then to make up for you or for Craig, who I think said that we were out of the race in April. But I do want to just say we're 2 games back in both the division and the wild card at this point, despite I think not playing our best baseball at any point yet this season. So as teams like the Cubs and the Cardinals continue to underperform a bit, the Brewers and others are maintaining, and I that's not good enough, obviously. But at the same time, if the Brewers can come up with a last couple weeks here in August and a hot month of September, just like last season, looking back at 2018, a year that we made the playoffs, obviously won our division. The Brewers actually had a 500 record, I think, in July, or 500 record in June and a losing record in July. They were pretty decent in a couple games over 500 in August, and then it was September where the team really came on, and started piling on. If I'm looking at this optimistically, I'm thinking, all right, maybe this is just a team that plays better down the stretch in the clutch. When the lights are a little brighter, perhaps. Whether or not that's the case, I don't know. But the last couple of years, even in 2017, the team played better in September. If you remember, that team wasn't expected to do all that much, and yet the Brewers only were eliminated, I think, with 2 games left in the season after a pretty hot September. So I'm hopeful, at least, that the team can kind of put it together. The other stat that the interns kind of ran with today on Twitter, and I think it's interesting, is that 16 of the next 25 games for the Brewers come against the Cubs and the Cardinals, obviously division rivals. Being only 2 games back in the division with that many games left to play against division rivals who are ahead of us right now, I think gives fans a lot of reason for hope, because anything can happen in the month of baseball. And I do think that with that many games left against division winners, or against division rivals, I should say, we've got the potential to either fall out of this thing very quickly or to be right in the thick of it and perhaps even pull ahead if we're able to play well against those couple teams.
Well, yeah, and to give you an idea, I mean, this is the gauntlet starting. Well, actually, probably starting last week, but
we'll start. We're really starting tonight. Nationals.
Especially within the division. I mean, so right now here's our next 5 series: at Cardinals, home Diamondbacks, home Cardinals, at Cubs, home Astros, and then we got another Cubs series at home after that. That's a 4-gamer. So I mean,
yeah, but then the Marlins,
stretch.
It is. But it could also, you've got the opportunity then to advance against some teams, and after the Marlins or the opponent on the road in Miami, then it's another series in St. Louis against the Cardinals. So that's a lot of a lot of interdivision games going on here in the next 3-4 weeks of the season.
And that's when, if we can just sort of hang around until the middle of September, I mean, we have a chance to make up a ton, or distance ourselves at basically in the last 2 weeks here. 4 games at home against the Padres, 3 at home against the Pirates, and then we've got 3-3 on the road against the Reds and Rockies. None of those teams really frighten me. I mean, that's your opportunity right there, but those games aren't going to mean as much if we fall behind now. So,
that's exactly right. But again, I think that there's an opportunity here. We'll see what happens. It's obviously tough. The Cardinals are a good team. The Cubs are a good team. We can't take anything for granted. That being said, playing those teams that many times in this stretch, I think does give us a bit of at least an edge on teams that don't have those division opportunities like we do. So, no, I'm excited for it. And we'll see what happens. And I know we've talked about it on other podcasts, but I don't think that anybody would have predicted that, we were going to run away with this division by 5 or 10 games. I just don't think that that's realistic. When you've got teams that are as equally matched as the Brewers are with the Cubs or the Cardinals, everybody is pretty solid, top to bottom. And I would have been shocked if it wasn't going to be a close division race. So to be where we're sitting, essentially the middle of August still, I really am not shocked at all. And I know that we've had opportunities that we didn't take advantage of, but so have the other teams. And that's to be expected in a hard 62-game season. So I think that there needs to be a little bit of perspective put on this, that, there's been some disappointments. There's also been some injuries. There's also been, questionable decisions, of course, and maybe trades that weren't made or starting rotation questions not addressed. That being said, we're right where we, I think, would want to be almost. Obviously, you'd like to be up by 2 games rather than behind by 2 games, but with this many games left and this many games left against division rivals, I think we're not actually in a bad spot.
Yep, a lot of baseball left. That is for sure. So, I mean, obviously, I believe you were there for that entire series, in fact, with
I was, yeah.
Brewers and Nationals. Anything exciting or something crazy happen or anything like that?
I mean, lots of. Yeah, well, right. Yeah, other than what took place on the field. Had some interactions with some players, which was really good. Had a chance to talk a little bit to Hernan Perez, really a good guy. We had a couple moves that were made recently that maybe we should touch on. The Brewers, after that marathon game on Saturday, had to send down Ray Black and Freddie Peralta to the minor leagues to San Antonio. just because you kind of had gone through that entire bullpen. In fact, both teams were out of pitchers by the time that game was done. So in order to get some fresh arms up, Jay Jackson and Aaron Wilkerson were recalled. And Wilkerson's already since been sent down for Zach Davies, but had a chance actually to talk to both Ray Black and Jay Jackson a little bit before the game on Saturday to Ray Black, and then after the game on Sunday to Jay Jackson. And just, we didn't have a formal interview with these guys, but just to kind of relay to our fans what the interaction was like. We talked to Ray Black, and when Ray Ray and I were talking, he just kind of reiterated how excited he was to be in the Brewers organization, and just that he was very excited for this opportunity. So I would like to just point out to fans that he's a really personable guy that I think is genuinely excited for this chance in Milwaukee. He had spent, a little time in the big leagues with the Giants, and but not a ton of time. And I think he kind of sees this as being a good fresh start, and he's very excited to be with a team like the Brewers. And then Jay Jackson could have been nicer as well after the game on Sunday, talking to him. Also had a chance to talk to Chase Anderson a little bit on Sunday after the game that he lost. And, and it was interesting. He remained incredibly graceful even after his poor performance on Sunday, and just kind of said these things happen, and it is what it is. I view the fact that he was willing to still talk after a game like that, to be kind of a statement on his character. He just is an all-around pretty classy guy. So anyway, those were some brief interactions with these guys, and had a really good experience overall with the team the last few days.
I can't even remember what team it was anymore, but do you remember when Craig randomly asked the guy if a team won that night, and it turned out that the person at the bar was Russell Martin, and he just gave him a look.
I was with – I can relay that story because I was there. We was at a bar in Chicago, and Craig likes to drink, our executive producer, or former executive producer, and
Coronas.
Drinks a little too much. He drinks a little too many Coronas, and he's got
Stella now, I think, or Heineken. I don't know, something.
It's poor taste in beer, but we love him nonetheless. And he mentioned to Russell Martin. Russell Martin and Brad Penny were sitting at a bar, and Craig asked Russell what the score of the game was, meaning the hockey game that was taking place. Craig's an educated man. He went to UW-Madison, so he's pretty educated. And he talked to Russell and recognized him, I should say, right away, and asked him. And Russell looked at Craig like this death stare, and assumed that Craig had been talking about the Dodgers and Cubs game that had taken place that day. This is when both Penny and Martin were with the Dodgers, and Martin's still there, but the look of death that was inspired by Craig's question was pretty epic. And when Russell stood up to engage Craig, and we'll call it conversation, but I think it was really to engage in a fisticuffs. And Brad Penny had to step in, and I had to step in to sort of defuse the situation. It was quite epic. But when Craig drinks too much, he gets a little frustrated or out of control. So we all know what can happen there. So in any event, yes, that was probably a much better interaction that we had this weekend with the Brewers here in Washington than Craig's interaction with the Dodgers in Chicago randomly in circa 2008.
Well, in Craig's defense, I mean, we all get a little crazy when we drink, but I've never seen Craig actually punch someone. Something
I did,
like a tree or a pillar or.
Yeah, didn't he punch that porta pot one time at a tailgating party for Bon Jovi or something?
A desk.
Yeah.
A chair. Well, he threw the chair. That doesn't count.
And then he threatened that Canadian Mountie that one time at Niagara Falls. But and Craig can defend himself next time he comes on a podcast, which we'll see when that is. But he may also never call us back again after listening to this.
Sorry, Craig. Well, Craig was sober when he threatened the Mountie, for what it's worth, and that ticket was BS.
That's true. Scott, do we have any email questions here in the bag? I don't know if you see anything here. Email questions from fans.
I don't know. I didn't even look. I probably should.
Did you have the interns check on that? Here, let me check.
Interns don't do anything, so.
Let me check on this quick. Oh, I got one here. This question comes from Sullivan King, actually, from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and Sullivan writes, hey guys, great show. Love you guys. Scott, like your hair. Do you guys think that there will be any additions from the minor league team that comes up when rosters expand that'll make a difference for the Brewers on September 1st? Scott, nice
Short
tie.
answer.
Love the show, Sully.
Okay. Well, I'll just underline that will make a difference, and then short answer, no.
Okay.
Sorry.
Fair enough. I mean, we're only looking at guys that are on the 40 right now. I could see us adding a little depth maybe with, certain positions. I'll take Sully's question here, even though he didn't reply to anything about my side. But I'll say David Freitas perhaps is being a backup catcher. No, it sounds weird, but when you're going through,
maybe.
Well, perhaps, but Freitas is having a heck of a year in San Antonio, so I could see him. And the other guy, and it seems like David Stearns, likes veterans in September, looking at the track record of bringing in guys like Granderson. We don't have the August 31st trade deadline anymore, so maybe a guy like Corey Spangenberg is actually hitting pretty well in San Antonio with the Missions as well. So I could see one of those guys perhaps getting the nod, guys that we have not yet seen in a Brewers uniform, sort of veterans we can add. Spangenberg can play several positions on the infield, so he might be a guy. I do think we're also going to see, more familiar names like Travis Shaw and Tyler Saladino that are called back up to the big leagues, and then a lot of these guys who have been, sort of on the bullpen minor league to major league shuttle throughout the course of the year, guys like Wilkerson or Ray Black or Faria, the guy that we just got from Tampa, other guys like that. So we'll see some arms. I think that it's never a bad thing to add pitching. Freddie Peralta, I'm sure he'll be back up. Guys like that. The one guy who I do not think we're going to see is Corbin Burns, who, by the way, was sent from AAA to AA this past week as well, in another bit of news.
Well, sometimes you just got to get it right. Sometimes a change of scenery is what you need, and sometimes two changes of scenery is what you need. So
bizarre. It's bizarre.
I don't know, man. I'm totally rooting for the guy. I mean, I thought for sure that he was going to wind up being like, I thought like him, Taylor Williams, oh man, it's just so frustrating. I mean, I'll say this: of the people that we bring up, there is a chance that one of those arms is gonna, even if they wind up only throwing 5-8 innings, something like that, like they could be a really, really strong contribution because this bullpen needs help. Spangenberg, by the way. Sorry, I was just gonna say Spangenberg, by the other way, was he was the other half of the Domingo Santana trade. So we brought Gamble and him, right? So we haven't seen much of him yet in the majors, but
I don't think that's accurate, but that's okay, Scott.
Seriously?
Yeah, that's all right though. Yeah, I think we signed him as a free agent from the Padres, but that's okay.
Spangenberg?
Yeah, you just check. The interns give you bad stuff. You're gonna have to let somebody go.
Just talk and I'll look. I don't know.
Yeah, well, fine. It's I don't know what if the interns are on spring break or what's going on, but well, anyways, thanks to Sullivan King for the question. In the meantime, we would like to remind you to continue to give our show a follow on Twitter. It is Brew Crew Review 1 on Twitter. Continue to send us your questions to our hosts and our interns, the ones that are not fired. Brew Crew Review Podcast with an S at gmail.com. And Scotty, what's the YouTube channel or what other information would you care to share with our listeners?
I don't know. Just look up Brew Crew Review. You'll see one about beer and one about us. So just
you can.
If we're talking about beer for more than 5 minutes, then it's probably the wrong one. If it's under 5 minutes, it's probably the right one.
And it's probably true. And special shout out to our new listener, Johnny Gianos Steinberg, who is now following our show and listening to our podcast this week. So we ran into him out here before the game, or after the game, I should say, on Friday. And he is a new fan of the Brew Crew Review. So shout out to Johnny and thanks for listening. And again, thank you to Sullivan King for the question. Scott, what do we have on the docket for the next week? Do you want to go through some predictions here for the next few games? The team, like you said, is in St. Louis right now, and then has a series against the Diamondbacks taking place at beautiful Miller Park in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So a total of 6 games, 3 games set against each team. What do you think? I
don't know. First, I just want to say that I'm really sorry. Yeah, no, Spangenberg, you're right. Yeah, no, claim him. Yeah, got him off Padres. Yeah, wonderful. Okay. I don't know why I was thinking he was part of that Santana trade, but, sometimes with Stearns, he does so many trades, it's hard to keep up on him, so I'm just going to blame it to that. But don't worry. Interns will edit this all out anyway, so I won't look like an idiot because our interns really like me. So I'm sure they'll edit it out. Not a problem.
And that is a reminder, with the fall semester starting, don't forget we do have an affiliated internship program with the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, Marquette University, and Carroll University, Concordia, Cardinal Stritch, and the University of Wisconsin-Waukesha, a.k.a. Harvard on the Hill. If you'd like to be an intern for credits, if you last the entire semester before getting fired, you can send us your resumes. Again, Brew Crew Review Podcast with an S.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I guess I was just going to say, what a ridiculous year this is. It's unbelievable. I'm trying to look up. I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to predict. So let's see. We've got this week 6 games. 3 at home against the Cardinals, 3 on the road against the Cubs.
No. 3 on the road against the Cardinals and 3 at home against the Diamondbacks.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, wrong week. God damn it. What is going on here? Sorry. I had a puppy attacking my legs, so I was just like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It happens. Yeah, okay. I'm going to say 3-3. I actually think we'll lose 2-3 to the Cardinals and get 2-3 against the Diamondbacks. But that's what I think. What do you think?
Yeah, at the risk of sounding a little uncreative, I tend to agree with you. We always seem to struggle in St. Louis, even after I gave that optimistic diatribe before. So, yeah, probably dropping 2-3 against the Cardinals, which is just going to cap off, a rough week overall on the calendar here. But, yeah, the Diamondbacks we seem to play well against. You know what? No, I'll change it up. I'll say 4-2. I think we sweep Arizona at home. How about that? But we lose 2-3, unfortunately, to the Cardinals. So I'll say we make up 1 game this week in the standings because of that.
Well, it probably makes for more interesting content. I mean, we can't always agree, I guess.
Scott, I think we've only got a couple of minutes left, but just really quick, why don't we talk about one other news item that came up this week? The 2020 schedule was released. Opening day is against the Chicago Cubs at Miller Park. In March. What do you think of the 2020 schedule and the Cubs being our first opponent, and any other weird features of the schedule that you'd like to discuss in the remaining time?
You know what? Great. Now I'm going to have to pull up the schedule. I really should have gone over this in pre-production. But you know what? I'm just going to go on rant instead. I'm just going to rant instead, so you can talk about the rest of the schedule. All I care about is that opening day, and I can tell you I'm pissed. Opening day to me is better than Christmas. It's better than Thanksgiving, New Year's. It is the best day of the year. If you're a hardcore fan, this is your favorite day of the year. Better than your birthday, better than anything. And to have to deal with those disgusting Cubs fans coming up here. I know that we're obnoxious as Brewer fans, but we're all rooting for the Brewers, so it's fine. But, man, cannot deal with that level of idiocy on opening day. I just feel like someone just spit on my cupcake.
And you're not wrong. I mean, and that's the thing. And I will just look at it too from a kind of a pragmatic point of view. I mean, when you look at teams like the Brewers, middle to small market teams, and games that are going to be sellouts anyways, well, we can always include the Cubs in that. We know that the Brewers and Cubs series at Miller Park is going to sell out every season, and we also know that opening day, no matter who it's against, is going to sell out. I'd rather have seen, some random team like the Rockies or the Padres or something that doesn't necessarily draw all that well in Milwaukee otherwise be part of that opening series, because you're going to get at least 1 sellout out of the first 3 games of the year. So yes, and I will just point out the last time I was back home was for opening day, so it is a holiday. And Scott, I will expect to see you at the tailgate party next year, regardless of who the opponent is, just for the record.
I will not be there. I'm one of those people, all of the times, I take the view that the great Dennis Kahn, oh man, his profanity-laced tirades. The only thing was when we swept the Cubs, and he was just get the F out of here, every one of you. Like, he was just absolutely so happy. The smile on his face, like, added years to my life. He was just, what a great guy.
As being a Brewers employee, it was a completely appropriate response for what it's worth.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So,
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, opening day is great, but it seems, like you said, kind of a waste when you already know that basically Brewers Cubs games are going to sell it anyway. Like, why do it? But whatever. I mean, it's not like the Brewers get to handpick their schedules. So,
yeah, this isn't the Bud Selig era, man. Also, one other weird part of the calendar or the schedule that I noticed, the Brewers have a lot of Friday off days, especially in the first few months of the year. It's completely bizarre to me. We're off on the day after opening day on a Friday night. We're off, that's March 27th. We're off on April 3rd. We're off on May 29th. I don't understand why Major League Baseball would start scheduling Friday off days, 3 Fridays during the season. It makes no sense to me.
Yeah, I don't get it. I mean, I guess also looking at the Brewers schedule, I noticed there were several 13-game stretches and things like that without an off day. I mean, I guess it's not super uncommon, but it seemed like they were a little more than normal. Not super happy about that either.
Yeah, it's bizarre. The Brewers do play the American League East in interleague play next year, so that means that the Yankees are going to come back to Miller Park. I believe that the Brewers play on the road, a home and road series both against Tampa, and then they go to Boston's Fenway Park, and they also do come to Camden Yards again. So on a selfish note, it'll be great to see the Brewers for a weekend up in Baltimore next season, and in addition to their DC trip. But it's a bizarre schedule to me, man. I don't know about a lot of this.
Yeah, Camden's something I'd always want to see, but I feel like I would just get my ass kicked in Baltimore and be like, "Oh, The Wire, remember that?"
Yeah, maybe less stereotypes and just come out here for a visit, Scott. We can go up there together. It's about 45 minutes from my house, so it's not that bad. So we're happy to escort you to Camden, just if you're not too afraid. It'd be fine. We survived Atlanta together, man. Remember?
We survived Detroit.
We did. I've been to Detroit with you. I've been to Atlanta. I don't think you've got too much to worry about when it comes to Baltimore. You'll be okay.
Yeah, no, I mean, other than a bird pooping on someone's that was like that. Oh, well, actually, no. I think Craig almost got us killed on the freeway.
He did. That was by far the most dangerous thing, and the police did give him one ticket during that trip, but not enough. So
yeah. It wasn't too bad. I mean, I wasn't as concerned as anybody, but we were in like a tank of a car. Like, I don't even know what it was, but I'm just going to say it was like probably like a Chrysler LeBaron or something like that. And there were 6 of us piled into this car. So, that just made it all the more interesting. Definitely a wild.
Nothing but class from the Brew Crew Review, man. Nothing but class. So it's all coming out of our travel budget. So thanks again to our sponsors for their extensive donations to Benno's in downtown West Dallas. We'd like to express our thanks.
Random thank you to John Barnes for getting us all those unbelievable tickets to all those unbelievable games, some on very short notice due to our own negligence. So
yes, no, most definitely.
Sorry, John.
Thanks to John. Yeah, and apologies in advance for probably calling you again sometime randomly for more tickets to something. Thanks to all of our sponsors, including the City of West Dallas Chamber of Commerce as well.
Hey, we got another 5-star like, by the way, on the podcast. So
another what?
Another 5-star review.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
that's awesome,
guys. Thank you so much for that. You have no idea. Like, I mean, they're weighted so much when you only have so few, and if you guys are listening to this, like, please vote. Definitely, like, I'm not above begging, and definitely, if it's of the 5-star variety, if it's like a 1 or a 2-star, even a 3 or a 4, like, you don't have to vote today. Just put it off. But 5 stars, man, we need them so bad.
Yeah, no, exactly. Well, and stay tuned, Brewer fans. We've got some interesting stuff. We'll try to continue to bring you this amazing content and Scott's expert analysis. But we will also be bringing you some player interviews. We've got an interview coming up with former Milwaukee Brewers pitcher Seth McClung at some point in the next couple of weeks. Seth has been gracious enough to agree to appear on our podcast, so we're excited to bring you kind of some thoughts and stories from a guy who was a pretty integral pitcher for us in 2008 during the Brewers' first postseason run in over 25 years at that point. So excited to talk to Seth. Scott, any other final thoughts here for our fans before we sign off?
Belated birthday wishes to Jason DeRocher, who was on our podcast just a few weeks back. Unbelievable interview. Like, I literally, like, it's so weird because I never even spoke to the guy until like 10 minutes before we started taping. And it felt like this is a guy like I could just grab a beer with and just like talk to for hours because he had so many great stories. Like, everything he said was entertaining.
Yeah, Jason is a really funny guy and really enjoyed getting to talk to him on the podcast. And actually, I had been talking with him for a week or two before the podcast as well. And we've traded a few texts since then, too. He's a really good guy, has a lot of good stories, and spend time in the bullpen, which always seems to be sort of the place where all these great baseball stories generate in so many cases, because you got guys that, are watching games for the first 6 innings like fans. And that's the funny part with these guys. I think that you can really find some characters all across baseball fields and diamonds across America, but you really are going to find your nest of characters many times in that bullpen. So yeah, Jason was one of those guys, and happy birthday to Jason. And thanks for listening to our show. And thanks for appearing on what I think was one of our better episodes, actually. So, and thanks to former Brewers pitcher Dave Pember, who was the guy that got us in touch with Jason in the first place.
Yeah, definitely. If you have a chance, like anybody who's listening, tell your friends, like, seriously, like, have them go back and listen to those old episodes with just the interviews that we've had with former players. Like, every single one of them is great. Like, I'm not saying every episode we do is great, but every interview we've had so far has been just awesome.
Yeah, Larry Sorensen, another guy, and Pete Zocolillo. We've managed to bring some guys that were in Larry's case especially, a guy who was really a key guy in Brewers history. And then you hear from other guys too, and it's not a cut on anyone, but I love hearing from guys that maybe didn't have they weren't first round draft picks, for instance, or they weren't guys that were for sure big leaguers, but they were able to spend years in professional baseball and played with the Brewers, and they played in the minor leagues. And in Pete Zocolillo's case, he played for the World Baseball Classic. And just to hear all these stories from guys that that had a role, whatever that role was in team history, I think is awesome. And guys like Larry Sorensen, geez, he was telling stories about having to face Jim Rice and Carl Yastrzemski and pitching in the All-Star game. It was just all these guys bring something to the table. And a guy like Dave Pember, who made his big league debut with Milwaukee, it's pretty awesome to hear those stories. So yeah, please give us not only a follow on social media, but go back, listen to some of the old interviews that we've had with some of these guys, and we'll continue to bring you those. And I think we're going to increase our interviews with players in the off season as well. Obviously, there's a lot of content, in season to talk about the on-field stuff and hot stove league stuff and everything like that. But in the off season, we're still going to continue to tape on a regular basis, and we'll try to bring you guys more interviews as well.
Yeah. Who knows? I mean, who knows what the future holds with this podcast? I mean, there's been a lot of talks under the table with things that we're working with right now. So it's definitely exciting. But yeah, I mean, if you guys have any questions, like whether it be like a question that you just want to submit, like do that. Obviously, Twitter, Facebook, the Gmail, like all of those things. Or if you have a question for like an interview that's upcoming or something like that, and you really want to ask somebody something, or if you just want to say like, oh, hey, like I remember I was at this game and Seth pitched lights out. It was awesome. Like we can do that too. Like we'll incorporate whatever we can. So always great to hear from you guys. I know it's always a pleasure to interact with you guys on Twitter, like even after some of the frustrating losses, like but more importantly, like those unbelievable wins. I mean, it was like a real fevered pitch when the Brewers came back and won that game on Saturday, and you were live tweeting it the whole time from the stadium, and it was just awesome. I mean, to have that kind of interaction with our fans is just phenomenal. So thank you guys.
Yep. No, and thanks again to our intern Esmeralda. If you haven't fired her, much appreciated for all her efforts. Thanks to our co-hosts Craig and Chad for all their great work on the show this evening. And Scotty, thanks for being on the set here tonight.
Yeah, always a pleasure. Always a lot
thanks
of fun.
to our anonymous source. Yeah, and thanks to our anonymous source, Tom Carter, as well. I don't want to forget him.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, I guess Jim Lieberman already mentioned his name. So I guess at this point it's okay if we say it just this once.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Sounds good. Well, all right, Scott. Thanks again. Reminder to tune in again next week. We'll have another great show for you. And in the meantime, stay classy, Wisconsin. Go Brewers.
Stay classy and go Brewers.
Do.